Welcome back to the Popped Podcast, where we uncover real, raw, and rarely discussed truths about pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and beyond. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Muery, prenatal and postpartum chiropractor, birth doula, and founder of Move Moms at Move Chiropractic Boulder. Today, we are diving deeper into the sleep series. I am super pumped about this conversation because I feel like I just remembered I knocked this over right before I started the episode, and it's usually pretty hard to get her back standing, but I'm sure I can do it. There we go. I'm really excited about getting into this episode because of all the controversy around it. It's a great topic. I love being able to be in a topic where there's no right answer and you can talk about the pros and cons of every different aspect or different variation of one thing. And that is safe sleeping with co-sleeping, and it's going to be good. I'm really excited just to kind of reframe the conversation around it, offer some safe sleep setups with co-sleeping, and just get into the nitty-gritty of why it's so controversial. Yeah, to begin with. So let's dive into it. So starting with the conversation around co-sleeping and safe sleeping. I'm going to say safe sleeping setups with quotes around it because I don't want there to be a boundary or a barrier around what is considered right or wrong for you and your family. But I do want to respect what safety measures what safety measures we can account for now. So why does sleep feel so high stakes? We already have talked about this many times. For new parents, sleep impacts everything from baby's growth to development and then parents' mental health and their recovery. Overall, there's a lot of harmony trying to happen in one home with a lot of newness all at the same time. Because it matters so much, sleep often becomes the most stressful part of early parenting. The real life tension that we experience or that parents experience are constantly asking, how do I keep my baby safe? While also thinking, how do I get some sleep? Those two questions do not have to be opposites. They just need to be balanced. Safety matters, but so does rest, connection, and mental health. And we'll talk about why parents feel so judged. Sleep has become kind of a report card, or what feels like a report card when discussing sleep and giving sleep updates to friends, families, anybody who asks. And parents of good sleepers often get praised, and then the parents of frequent wakers can feel like they're failing or feel guilty or embarrassed to even talk about it. So we have this big evolutionary perspective that I want us to also grasp as we go through this. Human babies are born neurologically immature. I've said that many times in many different episodes for many different aspects of babies' new early parenthood. It also has to do with sleep. They are not neurologically developed. They are immature in their neurology compared to other mammals, which is why we have the fourth trimester. Because of this, babies are biologically wired to wake often, feed frequently, and seek physical closeness. Understanding this takes the blame off parents, and your baby isn't just broken, but you're starting to understand their biology. So it's okay that we have two separate paths with the same goal. Some families are going to use cribs, bassinets, or bedside sleepers. Others will bed share, they'll use floor beds, or they'll co-sleep. None of these choices make someone a better or worse parent. The common ground for everyone is that they want their baby to sleep safely and thrive in their home. Whether your baby sleeps 18 inches away from you in a bassinet or right beside your bed, you're not wrong. You're responding to your baby the best way that you know how. In the US, messaging can feel scary around sleep. We have campaigns like Back to Sleep and Alone Back Crib, the ABC. And these have truly changed many people's lives, many new parents' lives. But they're often presented in a way that makes other parents feel fearful, or even the parents that are using it feel fearful of doing anything outside of those standards. The reality is most families co-sleep at some point, whether they want to or not. Silence and stigma around the topic is only going to keep parents from learning safe co-sleeping patterns for the chances in the cases that it does happen. So I want to approach this episode with no judgment, no fear, just information, tools, and reassurance. So what does safe sleep mean? The basics of safe sleep in the US by the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP, they recommend back sleeping. Babies sleep safest on their backs. Firm, flat surface like a crib or bassinet with a fitted sheet only. Clear space, no pillows, blankets, bumpers, or stuffed animals. Room sharing without bed sharing, ideally for the first 6 to 12 months. Let's put another finger up. These guidelines have reduced the rates of SIDS over the past few decades. And here's what they found from their research and where they get these recommendations from. Babies who sleep on their backs have a more open airway and are less likely to rebreathe carbon dioxide. That is true. If you think about it, when you are sitting in your most proper posture, your body was designed to have perfect breathing patterns in a perfect posture. If you sleep on your belly with your head turned to the side, you're going to have a less perfect breathing posture. That's the same for any human though. Adults, teenagers, babies, it's all the same for everybody. Next, they have back sleeping supports healthy arousal patterns, the ability to wake more easily if something disrupts their breathing. I talked about this, I think, in the first sleeping series episode, how babies do that on purpose. So that is true, but that is also on purpose. So sometimes we have to look at science and reasoning for recommendations. Sometimes reasoning, if we look a little one layer deeper. I just got a cool sweatshirt from, I'll wear it for the next episode, go one layer deeper from the Crime Junkie podcast, their show that they went on tour with. But just go one layer deeper when you see reasoning or when you see recommendations. Why are these recommendations? Oh, because of XYZ. Okay, well, is XYZ naturally supposed to happen or is XYZ not supposed to happen? Most of the time with babies and pregnancy and most pregnancy recommendations, things happen how they're supposed to happen. So this is the same with this. Sorry, I'm just repeating my words over and over and over. This is the same with sleeping. When babies sleep on their backs, yes, they're going to sleep a little bit better because they're going to have better airway passage. When babies sleep on their backs on a flat surface, it's easier for their arousal patterns. That is true. We like that. We like when babies arise. It doesn't mean that they have to. It doesn't mean that they won't arise. It just means that it's easier for them to arouse from sleeping if their breathing gets disturbed. Now, with all this, we have to look at what other protective risk factors are that aren't always talked about or included. And so I want to bring those up in this episode. It's not just co-sleeping or, bassinet sleeping. There's more to the story with sleeping. There's not just sleeping with your parent is unsafe. There's a lot of other unsafe things that can happen with your baby in their sleeping environment as well. So let's talk about it. Other protective factors. Breastfeeding. Makes sense. Moms need to breastfeed usually in the middle of the night. Sometimes babies actually need to be fed in the middle of the night. It'll keep them up. It'll regulate their breathing. Smoke-free environments is going to help babies sleep. It's crazy. It helps adults sleep too. We also have pacifier use being associated with a lower SIDS risk. There's so many things that we can do to protect baby. It's not just co-sleeping or bassinet sleeping. There's more than just that. Not every baby sleeps best in a crib. That's the truth of it. Not every parent can manage 12 months room sharing without some version of co-sleeping. Many families end up improvising in the middle of the night, falling asleep while nursing in a recliner, bringing baby into bed with them, which we're going to come back to the recliner thing in just a minute, etc. The danger comes when co-sleeping happens unintentionally without safety measures in place. So I have some evidence around co-sleeping and its safety. James McKenna's breast sleeping research shows that when safety guidelines are followed, co-sleeping can be protective. Mothers and babies sync in their sleep, and proximity supports feeding and breathing regulation. The difference isn't crib versus bed, but it's planned and intentional versus accidental or unsafe environments. Around the world, baby sleeping looks super different than in the US. In Japan, some families often co-sleep on firm futons all together, the entire family. In Africa and Latin American cultures, bed sharing is the default. These cultures may not follow the protocols I just went over, the ABC and the AAP's guidelines, but these families are sleeping well. These families are getting well rest at night. Because their setups are intentional, they're prepared, and they're free of high risk factors. Safe sleep isn't about one rigid rule. It's about creating an environment to minimize risk. So let's use a helpful checklist. We're looking for firm, flat, smoke-free, baby on their back, and a responsive caregiver nearby. Whether that space is a crib, a sidecar sleeper, a family bed, these principles all apply. Let me be clear about what room sharing, co-sleeping, what defines what, because I know it can get a little bed confusing. First, we have room sharing, which is where baby sleeps in the same room, different surface like crib, bassinet, or a sidecar sleeper. Bed sharing is when baby and parents share the same sleep surface. Co-sleeping is an umbrella term often used for either that I just talked about, but technically it means being in close proximity during sleep, room sharing, or bed sharing. Clarifying these terms matters because parents often hear co-sleeping is dangerous. What's really meant is bed sharing can be dangerous without preventative measures. So why is it so controversial in the U.S.? The official medical stance strongly discourages bed sharing, citing suffocation risks and liability concerns, which has led to fear-based messaging, never sleep with your baby, without acknowledging all the many parents that still do it without any help. Especially in the hardest nights of exhaustion, parents need some help, they need some guidance, they just need to know if we end up co-sleeping, how can we be safe? But because that isn't happening, a lot of parents often feel guilt, shame, or like they have to hide it, and so they don't get to talk about it. So they don't get to learn any safety measures or any preventative measures that they could be taking that they may not know about. For most of human history, babies have slept close to their parents. They have slept in close proximity to mom and dad. It is only recently in the US that we have started to draw this distinction where we feel like we need to separate, which we'll talk about. It's okay if that is you. We'll talk about that next episode. Co-sleeping is a biological norm, though. Babies regulate temperature, breathing, and feeding more effectively when they're near their parents. There are some studies that suggest over half of the U.S. parents will bed share at some point in their first year, even if they don't plan to. Often this happens out of sheer exhaustion, like falling asleep while feeding in a chair or bringing baby into bed at 2 a.m. because they're crying or they just are fussing and they can't settle. Ironically, avoiding open conversations about bed sharing can push families towards riskier, unplanned sleep setups. Back to James McKenna's work with breast sleeping, he was able to show that mothers and babies in safe bed sharing situations naturally sync up their sleep cycles and breastfeeding patterns and fall into more protective positions like the cuddle curl, where, big spoon, little spoon. It's so cute. It's so comfy. How sweet. Other research points that when risk factors like smoking, alcohol, or soft mattresses are removed, the dangers of bed sharing drop significantly. So we'll have some parents who choose cribs and have people asking them, why isn't your baby in bed with you? And then we'll have other parents who co-sleep and people are getting upset for them for not following AAP guidelines. Bottom line is both groups just want their babies to sleep. We all want babies to sleep safely. We just need help to understand how to best do that, no matter what situation or what the circumstances, no matter how exhausted we are or how long the day's been, so that we can support ourselves and our families. So what's actually so unsafe? Why is this unsafe? If we better understand why something is unsafe, we can better plan to prevent the unsafe thing. Many tragic stories of bed sharing or co-sleeping drive strict never bed share advice and don't come from intentional co-sleeping situations. They come from unsafe, unplanned situations, places where the risk was much higher than a thoughtfully or intentionally prepared sleep sharing space. The most common unsafe co-sleeping scenarios are couches and recliners. Babies can slip in between the cushions or become trapped against parents' body. This is one of the highest risk sleep situations. I talked about this with lots of my move mamas. We do not allow this. We do not do this. We do not practice this. Get out of those recliners. Get out of the couch or chair, whatever it is. If you guys are starting to fall asleep, get yourself to a flat surface. Get out of the chair. It is really unsafe. Chairs go down really deep. If you guys wanted to know, when I sit here and do my podcast, I actually sit here all the way in the crevice down here. I have my mirror to make sure that I look good, but it fits all the way down in my crevice. There's a lot of other things. I have a pair of socks in case my toes get cold. I'm not saying it's the size of a baby, but I am trying to point out that there's deep crevices in every chair, couch, or recliner thing that we have to sit in. Okay, you guys, I'm super excited about this new sponsor because it's somebody I've actually been working with for a while now called The Final Punctuation. It's a female-owned, one-woman editing and proofreading service. Her name is Carrie, and she has completely changed how confident I feel putting my words into the world. She's helped me with everything from my brochures to my doula contracts to small marketing things. And not only is her turnaround time incredible, but she helps you to understand the why behind her edits. She sees things that I would have never caught and somehow keeps your voice intact while making everything stronger, cleaner, and clearer. She works with all kinds of creators, from bloggers, podcasters, to small business owners, marketing folks, and even students. Anyone putting their words out into the world. And if you've ever posted something and noticed a typo after, you know how it feels. One tiny error can totally kill that first impression. In fact, stats show that only one typo can increase bounce rates by up to 85%, and grammar mistakes turn away nearly 60% of readers. And I know what you're thinking about AI. Can it just take care of all my grammar mechanics? AI still struggles with tone, nuance, and accuracy, which is not a great combo if you're trying to earn trust. So if you're writing anything from podcasts to brochures, website copy, marketing materials, let Carrie take a look at it. Visit thefinalpunctuation.com to submit a request for any project and tell her that you're a Popped Podcast listener for 15% off your first order. That's thefinalpunctuation.com. Now let's get back to the episode. When we are sleeping, we need to be on flat surfaces. I myself, as an adult, would not sleep on a chair. So you, as you're an adult and with your baby, probably shouldn't be sleeping on a chair anyways. It's really not good for your back, and it's not safe for your baby. Next, I have soft, cluttered beds. Western-style beds with heavy comforters, multiple pillows, or sagging mattresses often raise risk for suffocation. If you have a bed where you and your partner end up in the middle of the bed by the end of the night, get a new mattress, especially if you plan on co-sleeping. Even if you have baby in their own little bungalow or one of those like soft bassinets that can sit in your bed, that you can move around your house, put on your couch, whatever, it can fall in between you guys. That is a risk. We want to make sure that our bed is nice and firm. It doesn't have to be rock hard. It doesn't need to be uncomfortable, but it does need to have a more firm setting, especially in the middle. Next, I have parental impairment. If a caregiver has consumed alcohol, sedatives, or certain medications, their ability to respond is lowered, making bed sharing unsafe. It doesn't mean that you have to necessarily take baby out. Maybe it does if you don't have what I'm about to say. But maybe that partner goes into the guest bedroom for the night or onto the couch, and you use a bed bumper on the other side of the bed. You can use like a pool noodle. You can use pillows. You can use something on the other side of the bed under the sheets to make a bumper in the bed, and then create another probably barrier in between you and baby to make sure that baby has space still in between where the other parent would be. Next, I have smoking exposure. Both prenatal and postnatal smoke exposure increase the risk of SIDS, especially in shared sleep. No smoking. Don't be smoking. High-risk babies, premature, low birth weight, or medically fragile babies have different vulnerabilities and are safest on their own firm surface. Again, take this with a grain of salt. Do what makes sense for you and your family, but talk about it. Don't just keep this between you and your family, because we want to make sure that you are getting help and support if you need it, and guidance. If there is anything that feels a little bit off or funky, talk to someone about it. If you feel like you can't talk to someone about it because everybody's judgmental, DM me and I'll talk to you about it. Last I have is gaps and entrapment hazards. Beds pushed against walls, mattresses that don't fit frames tightly, or unsafe bed rails can create dangerous spaces where babies can become trapped. We like beds that are in the middle of the room. Obviously, maybe the back side of the bed is up against a wall, but those open, nice sides. You also may consider what your mattress is like. My family used to have a king-size mattress that was actually made up of 2 half mattresses. So if you were to undo all the extra bedding sheets, there's actually 2 separate mattresses. That is considered unsafe. That is more room for entrapment. Obviously, we had lots of stuff over it. I'm just saying that is something to consider. Make sure that you have a full covered flat surface. How does this connect, though, to our fear-based teaching? Did you notice that whole time I didn't tell anybody that they were wrong for the choices that they made? That's what it's like to get help in education and information about something that you're experiencing without any judgment. There's no judgment there. There's just information. That is not usually how our information comes across with sleeping. So if this is something you're experiencing right now, even in your family or from your in-laws, maybe from friends, it's okay. I hope that this episode gives you some validation and some comfort in you being able to decide and know what's best for you and your baby. Because so many tragedies have happened over and in these environments, official guidelines often default to don't ever bed share. This often paints all co-sleeping with the same brush, that it's unsafe and nobody should do it ever. But when you separate what's actually risky from what can be safe, parents can start to make informed choices to fully decide how to let their baby sleep without any unnecessary fear. Instead of saying that co-sleeping isn't safe, a more accurate statement that I wish we could all start saying is unplanned or unsafe environments are risky. Planned, intentional setups can be protective. This helps parents shift from that rather scared, fearful mindset and gives them tools to avoid the high-risk situations. So let's get back to some of these things I just talked about and starting to create frameworks around these risks that come with co-sleeping. Kenna's research also showed that babies sleep best when they're at breast height and not near pillows. The mother's arms and knees are in a natural cuddle curl, creating a protective space around the baby. Big spoon, little spoon. Mother and baby's sleep cycles synchronize, increasing the arousability, the protective factor against SIDS. This doesn't mean that bed sharing is only safe for breastfeeding families. It just highlights how biology often shapes the safety that we're all desiring. Our bodies, our biology was designed to create safe sleeping situations for our babies. We've just added all these extra new things into our society that often make our beds and our places for sleeping unsafe now for not just babies, but humans, adults, but especially babies because they don't have control typically over their physical body completely. So I'm going to fly through some of these practical setups and sleep hacks because I know you've probably heard them all. I'm sure you've looked them all up. This was really just to give you some more information behind the co-sleeping controversy in our society, but I want to fly through some of these practical setups if somehow you have not heard of this. We have the sidecar crib sleep. We have the sidecar crib setup. It's one of the more popular sleep situations for most families who want closeness without full bed sharing. It is usually a half bassinet that comes to the bed, or it's like a dip in one side of the bassinet so that you can easily grab baby, but they're closed in on the other side that's away from the bed. This is great for breastfeeding moms, especially if you're in the middle of the night, you need to grab baby out, put baby back in, but you don't want to bed share. We have bedside bassinets. This is basically the same as the sidecar, except that it's a full bassinet, so there's going to be the same height wall all the way around. Usually these can move, but usually you keep it right by the bed. Most people do. Then I have floor beds and futons. This is a staple for cultures in Japan or just a lot of other indigenous co-sleeping cultures. It's usually a bed on the floor big bed where everybody sleeps on the bed. It's flat surface, it's safe, it's low to the ground. It reduces the risks of falls if baby rolls. It also allows more space for family to sleep in arrangements and keeps things very simple. You can make a sleep space more safe or comfortable with sleep sacks instead of using loose blankets. You can keep the room at a cooler temperature. You can use breathable materials for the bedding and avoid excess clutter near the baby, like anything extra hanging on the sides or the insides of their cribs or like stuffed animals. We don't need that in there. If bed sharing, keep the baby positioned near the mother, not between two adults or siblings. When you're traveling, I know it can be difficult to recreate your sleeping situation on the go, and so it can create for even more difficult sleep, and you're just trying to be on a trip, vacation, whatever it is. Hotels, consider pushing a bed against the wall or using a portable sidecar pack and play. At grandma or grandpa's house, bring a familiar sleep item like a travel bassinet or a firm floor mat. When you're on the go, I like to suggest baby wearing. It's the most obvious, easiest place. I know it's not always the easiest on your back, depending on how big your baby is, but a lot of times babies can fall asleep with mom when they're skin to skin. All this to say, sleeping is a priority for everybody. Co-sleeping can be your priority too. Just consider the safety measures that are necessary to keep you and your family safe. There's not a ton to it. It's a couple measures that you can use and do right now. I gave you most of them here. If you really want to make sure you got them all, you can Google them. You'll find them all, because so many people say don't co-sleep for XYZ reasons. I am giving you all the reasons why people say don't co-sleep. Now you can use that information, be preventative, take away those risks, and now you have a much, much safer, low risk co-sleeping experience and situation or circumstance setup. So I hope that you feel validated in this episode, whether you co-sleep, whether you've sleep trained, whether you separate sleep, whether you've never slept in the same room, whatever it is, you're not wrong. We're just talking about those who want to share a bed, and that's okay. We want to make sure that it's safe for everybody without any judgment or shame or embarrassment. There doesn't need to be any of that. We just need to understand what's going on behind all the controversy so that we can make better, more informed decisions as parents. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you enjoyed it, or if it helped you understand co-sleeping better, if you are trying to explain or get some more of your friends or family on board to feel more validated, if that's something you're looking for, please send this episode to anybody who you think this is going to help understand co-sleeping just a little bit more. I hope you do. I know that I do. I hope you have a fantastic week. I'm trying to think if you like this episode, if you like this podcast, like, subscribe, share, comment, review, whatever feels good to you. I hope you have a fabulous week. I'm Dr. Emily, and you've been listening to the Popped Podcast.